So tell us a little bit about yourself, Duke. How'd you get from all that to artist?
Well, to tell you the truth, I mean, I think artist has been around. I just didn't know what it was called when I was doing it. I think like most artists, we kind of start out not really knowing, what we want to, if it's going to be a career or not. It's just something we did. And I don't know when I have not been drawing. So I would just say taking it from the very first time I saw um, NC Wyatt in the third grade from my art teacher during a art class, introducing us to classical artists. I think that's the first time I realized I can do that, you know. And I think from that, going into high school, having a great art teacher who was very encouraging, Mr. Dion, who was a great guy, who actually encouraged my art skills. And then from there, I went in the Marine Corps, and I wanted to actually to tell you the truth, I wanted to actually be in the Marine Corps band, and didn't quite make it. Because they were only choosing so many people. I had to go to Florida for audition, and that was a little disappointing, but there was still other options. So when I was in the reserves, I decided, I think I want to become an illustrator, because I've heard about the role of the combat illustrator, and the same thing you do as a civilian. I sent my portfolio off to headquarters Marine Corps, and then next thing I knew, I was being discharged from the reserves and sworn in active duty, and got orders to come out to San Diego, good old sunny San Diego. So I've been out here ever since.
Yeah.
Not a bad place to be, right?
Not at all.
Not a bad place to be, yeah.
And then we can see that you have the sunset pieces behind you. But before we get into those, you have these hamburger pieces that are my absolute favorite. So can you tell us about the inspiration behind those?
Well, I tell you, the one thing about these guys here,
I love those so
one
much.
thing about them is look at the color in it, and look at the shapes, Now think about the classical still life from the artists in the past, there's always milk on the table, there's a side of beef, maybe
Right.
Unplucked chicken. That was a still life. Right.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I was teaching prior to this situation we're in right now, is one of the exercises I had my students do, because we were doing still life painting, and I had them create their own layout for this. And then for some reason, at some point, I was at Carl's Jr. and I was looking at this photo, and I saw everything in that element of the modern still life right there. And that's our modern still life. So I decided to put it together, in our own iconic form. And that's one of the reasons why I use the gold leaf behind it as well, because there's something reverent about our food, which I believe is very important. So
I love them. We actually had hamburgers last night, and
Uh-oh.
look nearly as good as that. But.
No, I'm sure the viewers are going, what was that hamburger?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go to Duke's page on the RAVE site and look at the pieces. They're absolutely phenomenal. And by the way, so are your San Diego street scenes that you have behind you, because the color that you have with that sky and that yellow, I was born in Santa Monica,
right?
Grew up in California, and I could go back to any of my friends in high school, junior high, element. I mean, that color is exactly what the California winters, sunsets, kind of look like, even year round. But, and then I remember when we were talking, the telephone poles,
Right.
You've just captured San Diego so perfectly. They're phenomenal pieces. They're really well done.
Thank you.
So, and tell us, how did you start painting those street scenes in San Diego?
Well, I think it goes back to 1993, 94. I was on my way to a martial arts class in North Park, where I was living at the time. And, I cut through the alleys to head there. And all of a sudden I walked through one of the alleys, and it's late in the afternoon, and the sun is coming through the buildings, and there's this piercing light, that Southern California light that just cuts across between buildings. And it was just the right time. So I decided that looked like something, because I was struggling trying to find my voice or something to latch onto that spoke to me. And so I ran back to the house and got my camera that actually had film in it at the time, back when we used to use film, you know, that sort of thing, and shot it. And unfortunately, I couldn't see it immediately, so I had to wait until I developed it. So that roll went in the refrigerator for about a month or two before I had it developed. And then I saw those pictures as they came out, and I love the composition. I love the light. Because it was a low quality camera, the light was shifted. So it was slightly blue, lots of yellow coming through. And so I did a series of watercolors. I mean, kind of like what I've been doing again is going back doing watercolors of scenes that I'd like to do at some point. So, so I did dozens of watercolor samples like that, little small sketches. And then I would also do a few plein air sketches and going out and doing that. And eventually it became a series. It wasn't until about 1999 when I actually started doing acrylic series similar to the one right back here, with, you know, traditional color, traditional blue sky, and traditional technique. It was years later when I started doing the gold leaf.
Really nice.
Mhm.
So Duke, we've got 1 minute left.
Okay.
Hannah?
And what does a normal day look like for you?
A normal day?
Yeah, all your crazy talents that you
No,
have.
wait, you start by doing push-ups, right?
Put on my backpack and do a 50-mile run. A normal day, actually, you know, including the artwork that I do work a 9-to-5 job. So, you know, my day is I come out here to the studio after I go get my cup of coffee, come out here to the studio for about 2 hours to do some work. Then I'll work out on my exercise machine out here as well. And then I go back in, work, and then in the afternoon, I'm back out into the studio again. A lot of times when I come out during this time, I've got plenty of inventory. So a lot of it, my day is working on my inventory, you know, and working on new classes to teach on Zoom. And then later in the evening, I'm back out here and I'm back at the easel here trying to come up with the next Rembrandt at some point, I guess, you know. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Well, we look forward to seeing you at Art San Diego and our
Absolutely.
next event. And it's been a delight getting to know you this past week. I want to
Well,
thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, too. It'd be nice to see you guys in person and hopefully come out here to Art San Diego. That'd be great to do that, you know, and tip a glass of champagne together.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
before you leave, let's go to Laura. Laura's got something.
Okay, Laura?
I was just going to give a shout out again to everybody who's been watching and saying where they're coming from.
Okay.
We've got a Stephen from Santa Fe, Sarah from Tijuana, Sharon from Carlsbad, California, and a Cheryl from Temecula. So
Awesome.
anyway, thank you guys for giving us shout outs and letting us know you're watching. Really appreciate it.
Anybody from Texarkana? No?
I'll let you know.
All right, thank you.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much
Thanks, Duke.
again.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Okay.